Well, hey, good day. Welcome back to the Typewriter video series. Last week, I took a little vacation down to Silver City, New Mexico, as you might have seen in the previous video. Didn't do any other videos aside from that, but this week, we got something to talk about here. I didn't expect to get this, but this is a Torpedo typewriter, medium-sized portable. These are really good typewriters. These are probably on par with the Olympia SM series, I would say, in terms of build quality and the way they feel and everything. But this one is in pretty rough shape, and it has some issues. Let's talk about it, shall we? Stay tuned. So I was given this typewriter, and of course on the back panel you might be able to see it says Remington Rand, West Germany, and the tag where this was purchased from, like an antique or thrift store, vintage Remington Rand typewriter, $25. Not a bad price really, except this machine is in pretty rough shape. So it is pretty dirty inside. Haven't done any cleaning to it at all. The platen is in really bad shape. It's not cracked, but it is super hard and pitted with imprints from the characters. So it's really going to need to be recovered, I think. The scratches on the ribbon cover panel here, looks like from the carriage return lever or something. And these two pressure rollers on the paper bail both have cracks in them. Most notably, however, two of the key tops are missing for the 4 and the 5. The person who gave me this typewriter had a spare set of Smith Corona keys that are in kind of a beige color. It's the same characters, they match as far as the keyboard style, but the key levers themselves for this typewriter have a slightly narrower piece of metal, and so the slots in these replacement key tops are a little wider, and so in order to make these replacement key tops fit tightly, I had to put some little pieces of paper underneath them to as a spacer, and they are now pretty tight actually, but I don't really know if I want to replace all the key tops, really, because the rest of these aren't cracked. They appear to be nice and tight, and I think I'm just going to live with maybe having two keys of a different color, a different shape, and they're actually slightly higher up. They sit higher up than the others, but they're the number keys. They're numbers 4 and 5, $ and percent. I'm probably not going to use those keys that often, so if you have a less than perfect typewriter like this brand, Torpedo, Remington Rand, West Germany, it's pretty good machine. I think it has good bones, good mechanics, a good design, good build quality, but it's just very dirty and in less than perfect condition, obviously. When you have a machine like this, and especially it didn't cost me anything price-wise, I really have to ask myself, how much do I want to put into restoring this? How good do I want it to end up looking? Is appearance as important as functionality? That's really the main question. For me personally, I'm the kind of a person that doesn't care as much about the appearance of it. I care more about the mechanics and how it works. I'm more of a pragmatist when it comes to this, right? So I don't bother as much about scratches, maybe. I like to clean up all the dirt and get it degreased and working properly, of course, but it doesn't bother me as much about the scratch in the ribbon cover, or the fact that some of these keys are fairly worn, or the fact that some of these keys, like I can tell, for instance, the W key, the letter itself is lower, a little bit lower than the key top, and so these sharp little corners inside the W, you can kind of feel that on your fingertip, like it might be sharp feeling, and maybe with an extended typing session, you might get a little blister or some kind of abrasion on your fingertip. Who knows? That kind of stuff doesn't bother me as much. Really, to me, it's more about the practicality of how it works. So, having said all that, I kind of have to decide, really, if I want to replace the key tops or not, and how far do I want to go into restoring this machine. So the first question you want to ask yourself is, does the machine even work? And the answer to that is, surprisingly, yes, it does. Original ribbon, or whatever ribbon came with it, paper threads up through there nicely. It has a nice touch to it, and actually the imprint quality, the type quality is not really that bad. It's pretty good considering I have not done any cleaning to the type slugs, and this is whatever ribbon that came with it, right? So also the type alignment of the type is even. Mechanically, actually everything works. Well, a couple other issues. Well, for one, it doesn't have a case. Okay, so it's a medium-sized portable, no case. So you think, okay, transporting it, if you want it to be a portable typewriter now, you're gonna have to find a bag, or a heavy-duty bag to carry it in, because a normal little messenger style bag is probably too narrow for this typewriter. So I'm going to have to come up with an alternative way of storing it and protecting it. But the other issue is that the rubber feet on the bottom are severely cracked and squished. They're just terrible. And some person in the past has already replaced one of the 4 feet with a block of plywood. So obviously I'm going to have to come up with a makeshift set of feet for this machine. But other than that, the mechanics of the machine look like they're in really good shape. And I've been doing a little bit of test typing. I haven't seen any piling up of letters. I haven't seen any skipping. So it looks like the escapement is actually working okay. It's going to need a really good cleaning, really filthy. The big question really for me is going to be this platen. Do I want to pull the platen out and ship it off and get it recovered? That is a good question. Now, one other issue this typewriter does have is the ribbon reversing system. These guides do not actually move, so it doesn't really use grommets for the ribbon reversing. It's really going on tension and the position of this lever mechanism for these tensioning levers. And this is basically not reversing the ribbon. As you can see, the grommet catches the guide, and even if you get it out of the guide and let it continue, it's going to just hang up on the ribbon vibrator. It's not going to reverse itself. So the reversing system is, as it is now, you can only reverse it manually by opening up the ribbon cover and flipping the lever back and forth. There is no external ribbon reversing knob available. So it's all about the tension, the back tension in these the mechanism underneath here on both sides. So I'm going to have to work on that. So the supports for the type bars at the rest position here is a piece of felt, a heavy piece of felt, which is nice, but the felt is coming loose. So I'm going to have to cement that piece back in place so it doesn't fall out. But it's nice to have felt instead of the rubbery material that can cause the type bar sometimes to stick. So that's good. And fortunately, the feed rollers are actually in pretty good shape. They're not cracked and they don't have any flat spots on them. And they have a little bit of resilience to them, so that's good. Now, to replace these corroded feet, I think I'm going to try to find some square furniture casters, little rubber furniture casters, and then just drill 2 holes in the center for the 2 mounting screws in the bracket. I think that's probably the easiest solution. Well, I'm sure most of us who are typewriter collectors take a certain amount of pride in our collection, and we get a machine like this that has good bones, good mechanics, but is really dirty and needs some degree of work. You're going to want to fix it up, certainly, and most of us are going to want to. But the interesting thing about it is, in spite of that, it essentially works right now. If I put a fresh ribbon in this machine, it is essentially usable. I had a couple type bars earlier that were hanging up, but I think with just a little bit of exercising them, they've freed up already just from working the joints that have been static for probably decades. So it's interesting. Yeah, I'm going to clean this up, but it really doesn't need to actually be functional. I could sit it down on a table at a public type out event, even just the way it is, people could get some use out of it. And you got to think, wow, that's actually a kind of an interesting thought. As old and as, you know, abused, maybe not abused, but as abandoned as this machine looks, let's say, the fact that it works so good and is so well aligned, it really is amazing, and that's probably a testimony to its build quality. I will mention one other issue here, just a note in noting. So it is a half-space machine, so when you put it on the single line spacing, the carriage return lever has 2 clicks. And the second click, the one that finishes the carriage return stroke, is just a little shorter and a little harder to push in. And it may have something to do with this line spacing ratchet down here on the left side of the platen. So certainly that's going to need a good degreasing, and I may have to fiddle with the alignment of that spring-loaded roller that engages the sprocket of the line spacing sprocket on the left side of the platen. May have to fiddle with that to get it, but that last click feels a little hard and a little short, like it's binding or something. But other than that, man, it's in surprisingly good shape. Well, let's take a look at the keyboard here. So this is a more contemporary keyboard. It has a #1 and an exclamation mark. It's a standard American style keyboard, so a $sign, pound symbol, and up here on the right it has a plus equals. And all the standard American keyboard style keys in pretty much the order you would expect them in. So the tab key is here on the left, to the left of the Q. See, that has a nice break. So there is a tab braking system. It looks like it's working pretty consistently. And you have this lever, which is a full tab set clear, right? Push up or down to set and clear the tabs. You have the shift and shift lock on the left, of course, shift on the right. There is a backspace key to the right of the fraction key, and there is a margin release key here to the right of the cent and at symbol right here. So just below the backspace is the margin release. And then this lever on the right here is your bichrome setting. So between black, stencil, and red right there. So pretty standard type keyboard, and the space bar is nice and wide. It has a nice little trim here, nice little chrome trim, kind of nice styling. Two-tone, kind of a grayish gunmetal blue look with the metal trim. It's kind of nice modernist 20th century look. Of course, we have our two different key tops here that sort of stand out glaringly, and I really do like the Torpedo badge. It's very nice. So let's see, up here on the right side of the carriage, of course, you have your paper bail that lifts up. There is a finger like this on both sides of the bail, and this lever right here releases the tension on the feed rollers. So you can see that operating there. And then this lever to the behind the carriage knob, of course, is the carriage release lever, releases the escapement, and of course the right platen knob. On the back side of the machine, you have this rear paper table hinges forward. Here is your flip-up paper support. You have the left guide right here for the left edge of the paper. Your two margin settings right here on the left and right. These are kind of nice little designed. They have these little grooves machined into the tops of these. They feel nice, and they push and slide like that. And then visible down below are all the little tab stops. So this is the carriage lock lever. You push it to the rear and it will lock. You pull it forward and it'll unlock. So it's a physical lock for the carriage, which is very nice. So the carriage release lever is right behind the carriage return lever right here. There's carriage release. This right here is a universal tab clear, so it pushes down all those tab stops to clear all the tabs at once. This middle lever right here is your variable line spacing. It releases the ratchet for the line spacing. Pull it forward and it go back to the original ratcheting. And then the lever in front here is the 4-position line spacing selector, and of course the finger for the left side of the paper bail. I think you kind of have to admire the design of the carriage return lever. It has this nice little kind of swooping S-curve to it, and I like the way it flares out, and then there's this horizontal shape to it, so you can kind of hit it with the side of your hand as you go like that, which is really nice. And as evidenced by the serial number down here, this is a deluxe model from 1962. So a superficial examination of the typeface might suggest that this is a 10 character per inch pica typeface, but if you actually center up the characters, it looks like European type metric type of spacing. It doesn't quite exactly line up here. It's a little bit less than 10 characters per inch. So sometimes when you're looking for typewriters, you'll come across what is a true, pristine, absolutely wonderful condition typewriter, and those are often few and far between. Typically, your manual typewriters are going to have some kind of issue, and this is no exception. It does have issues. It's definitely used and worn, and there's even evidence, as I said, of some repairs done, like to this little wooden foot put in here. Less than pristine typewriter, but that doesn't mean it isn't worth something. This has good bones, good mechanics, good design, good build quality, and because of that, I think it's worth salvaging, worth saving, worth using, and it's not really going to take that much to get it in good working order. The biggest issue is really the platen and the feet underneath. The feet are really less of an issue. Really the platen is the big thing, and I have to decide what I want to do with that. But if you see a machine like this at a thrift store, antique store, somewhere local, yard sale, and you might think, man, that's awful rough. I don't know if I want to get into that or not. Look at the brand name, the model, the reputation it has. Do the basic checks on the functionality of the machine. This is a segment shift machine. Segment shift, hey, that's pretty good, right? Platen knobs look to be in good shape. Some cosmetic issues, obviously, but really, it's a pretty darn good machine, I think. It's going to be very useful for a type-in typewriter. This will be the kind of a typewriter I'll probably bring to a typewriter event and have people, the public, use it because it's old, it's a little rough, but it works great, right? So there it is. Hope this inspires you guys to don't pass up those rough-looking machines without giving them another look. And especially if you have some parts machines that you can borrow some stuff like key tops or whatever it needs, right? You can make something else work for it. So here it is, Torpedo Typewriter. So when I've made significant progress on finishing this machine, I will do a follow-up video, but I might send off the platen to JJ Short to get recovered, so it may be a while before I do a follow-up video, but look forward to that and see how I finished it. Okay, guys, stay creative, stay well, have yourselves a great day. Bye-bye for now.